Welcome back to Elderly Smiles. Don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and click the bell icon to stay updated. Let's begin the discussion.
Hey everyone, welcome back. We're diving into something that I know a lot of us think about, especially as we get a little older. How to keep our breakfast both tasty and good for us after 60.
Exactly. It's a question I get all the time. How can we enjoy those morning meals without worrying about what might be lurking beneath the surface?
Well, we found this really interesting article that's going to help us unpack this.
Yeah, this one breaks down 3 big categories of foods that a lot of folks enjoy for breakfast, but that can actually have some hidden downsides as we age.
That's right. We're talking processed foods, those sugary treats that we all love, and even some of those high-fat favorites that we might think are doing us good.
And the thing is, it's not just about the calories, right? It's about understanding why these foods can become more of an issue as we get older, how our bodies change, and how those changes affect what we need nutrition-wise.
So true. So why don't we kick things off with those processed foods? Because let's be real, most of us are reaching for something quick and easy in the morning, whether it's a bowl of cereal or a quick breakfast sandwich.
Absolutely. Convenience is key. But what many people don't always realize is that a lot of these grab-and-go breakfasts are packed with things like sodium, preservatives, and added sugars that we might not even be aware of.
And the article really emphasizes that as we get older, our bodies can become more sensitive to these ingredients.
You got it. Like, for instance, our kidneys don't process sodium as efficiently when we're older, which means that having a breakfast that's high in sodium could make our blood pressure spike. And that's a big concern, especially for those of us over 60 who are already at a greater risk for heart issues.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but when my blood pressure spikes, I feel it. It's like this instant energy drain.
Oh, tell me about it. And the article actually shares a really good example of this. It talks about a woman named Brenda. She was in her late 60s and was having instant oatmeal and a pastry every morning for breakfast.
Oh, okay. And what happened?
Well, for a while she felt all right, but then she started getting these dizzy spells and felt super tired in the afternoons.
Wow. And did she even connect that to her breakfast?
No, not right away. It wasn't until she went to the doctor and they checked her blood pressure that she realized those morning spikes were the culprit.
Wow. And the article says this is something that happens to a lot of people and they don't even realize it.
That's right. It's more common than you might think.
So what can we do about it? Because, those easy breakfast choices are super tempting, especially when we're busy.
I think the key is to be aware of what's really in those processed foods and then try to make some smarter swaps.
Okay, I like that. Smarter swaps. So what are some examples?
Well, like instead of that instant oatmeal, which can be pretty high in sodium and sugars, try making a big batch of plain oatmeal on the weekend and then just portion it out for the week.
Oh, yeah, that's a great idea. And you can add fresh fruit or nuts to it. Right?
Exactly. A drizzle of honey if you want a touch of sweetness. It's way tastier than that packaged stuff, too. And what about those pre-made breakfast sandwiches? Instead of those, try making your own at home using whole grain bread, maybe some eggs, and avocado.
Yeah, because those pre-made ones, they always look so good in the pictures, but they're usually full of processed meats and cheese.
Yeah, not exactly the best way to start the day if you're thinking about your heart health. Those processed meats often have loads of sodium and preservatives that can be rough on our bodies as we get older.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And let's not forget all that fat, which we know can be an issue too.
Right. Definitely contributes to cholesterol problems and other health issues. The article talks about this guy named George who ate a breakfast sandwich almost every day for years. He felt fine, but then started having digestive problems and his cholesterol went way up.
Oh, wow.
It's a classic example of how even small things in our diet can build up over time.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it's not just those breakfast sandwiches, right?
Yeah.
The article mentions that even some of those so-called healthy breakfast bars and drinks aimed at seniors can be full of processed ingredients.
Totally. Artificial sweeteners, chemicals, all sorts of things that can upset our stomachs.
I used to buy those breakfast bars all the time, thinking they were a healthy choice. But I noticed they would always upset my stomach. And they never kept me full for very long.
It's a really common experience. They're marketed as good for you, but they're often so processed and just don't have the nutrients our bodies need. And those artificial sweeteners can make us crave more sugar, so it's like a vicious cycle.
Wow, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so what about cereal? Tons of cereals are advertised as heart healthy or good for digestion.
You've got to be careful and really read the label. Just because a box says whole grain doesn't mean it's automatically good for you. Lots of them are still packed with added sugar and preservatives.
So we basically have to become label detectives.
Exactly. We have to be informed and make smart choices.
I like that. Okay, so we've talked about the potential downsides of processed foods. But I know the article also highlights some positive stories, right? People who made some changes and saw real improvements in their health.
You bet. One story that stood out to me was about Susan. She decided to ditch the instant oatmeal and started making her own with steel-cut oats. She'd add fresh berries and nuts for flavor.
And what happened?
Well, after a few weeks, she had more energy during the day and her digestion was better. She even said she felt less bloated and didn't crave sugary snacks as much.
That's incredible. It shows you don't have to completely overhaul your life to see results.
Exactly. Simple changes can make a huge difference. And it's not just about the physical benefits. Choosing healthier options can really boost our mental and emotional well-being too.
That's so important. Okay, so we've covered processed foods. What about those foods that are high in refined sugar? I think we all know that too much sugar isn't good for us, but the article really dives into how it becomes even more of a problem as we get older.
It's true. Our bodies just don't process sugar the same way anymore.
Yeah, the article actually had this crazy comparison. It said that a typical sugary breakfast can have as much sugar as a handful of donuts. It's kind of scary when you think about it.
Yeah, it can be. And when we have that much sugar first thing in the morning, it sends our blood sugar levels way up, which can lead to those energy crashes, mood swings, and even long-term problems like type 2 diabetes.
Right, and the article also mentioned how sugar can make inflammation in our bodies worse, which can really aggravate joint pain and other issues that come with age.
That's a super important point. Inflammation is a natural process that helps our bodies heal, but when it's chronic, it can actually damage tissues and organs over time.
Oh, wow, that's serious.
It is. And for older adults who are already more prone to inflammation, a high sugar diet can make these problems even worse.
So when we're looking at our breakfast choices, what are some of the main sugar culprits to watch out for?
Well, a lot of breakfast foods that seem healthy on the surface can be loaded with sugar, like fruit-flavored yogurt. Some of them have as much sugar as a candy bar. And then there are those breakfast pastries. They're basically dessert disguised as breakfast.
Oh, yeah, those are hard to resist. What about fruit juice? Lots of people think that's a healthy choice.
While it's true that fruit juice has some vitamins, it's also really concentrated in sugar and doesn't have the fiber that whole fruit has.
So it's better to stick with the actual fruit.
Absolutely. You get that natural sweetness along with the fiber, which helps slow down how our bodies absorb the sugar.
Okay, that makes sense. So let's talk about some healthier ways to satisfy that sweet craving in the morning. I know the article suggested a few ideas.
One great option is to swap out sugary cereal for plain Greek yogurt with fresh berries and a sprinkle of cinnamon.
Oh, that sounds delicious.
Right. The yogurt gives you protein and calcium. The berries provide natural sweetness and antioxidants. And cinnamon can actually help regulate blood sugar levels.
And I bet that's a lot more satisfying than a bowl of cereal that leaves you hungry an hour later.
You got it.
Yeah.
Another good one is overnight oats. Soak rolled oats in milk or yogurt overnight. Then in the morning, add some fresh fruit, nuts, seeds, you name it.
Overnight oats are so versatile, right? You can get really creative with them.
Yeah.
Speaking of creativity, the article mentioned this woman, Maria, who had a super clever way to satisfy her sweet tooth without all that added sugar.
Oh, yeah. I loved her story. She was so inventive. What did she do?
She started making these breakfast cookies using oats, bananas, nuts, and spices. They're naturally sweet and packed with fiber and protein to keep her going throughout the morning. The best part is she makes a batch on the weekend and can just grab one when she's rushing out the door.
Now that's thinking ahead. It just goes to show that healthy eating doesn't have to be boring or restrictive.
I love that. All right, so we've talked about processed foods and sugary treats. I guess it's time to tackle the third category, those high-fat foods. I think a lot of us were raised with the idea that we need a big, hearty breakfast to start the day, which often meant things like bacon, sausage, and eggs cooked in butter.
It's true. That image of a big breakfast is kind of ingrained in our culture. And we do need some fat in our diets for energy and to help us absorb certain nutrients. But the type of fat we choose makes a big difference, especially as we age.
Right, because the article pointed out that our metabolism slows down as we get older, so our bodies don't process fats as efficiently.
Exactly. And if we're eating lots of saturated fat, which is found in those breakfast meats and full-fat dairy products, it can increase our risk of heart disease, high cholesterol, and other problems.
And I remember the article highlighted this guy, David, who loved his traditional breakfast of bacon, eggs, and buttered toast. He was shocked when his cholesterol levels turned out to be super high.
It's unfortunately pretty common. And those high-fat breakfasts don't just affect our cholesterol, they can make us feel tired and sluggish throughout the day.
Really? I always thought a big breakfast would give you more energy.
It seems like it would, but actually those heavy, greasy foods require a lot of energy to digest, and that can make us feel drained, especially as we get older and our digestion isn't quite as strong.
Wow, I had no idea. So it's not just about avoiding those obvious things like bacon and sausage.
Right. We also have to watch out for hidden fats in things like pastries, muffins, even some yogurts.
I was actually surprised to learn how much butter and shortening can be in those light breakfast pastries.
Yeah, it's all about reading those labels and looking beyond the packaging.
So we need to be mindful of saturated fat. But the article also talks about the importance of healthy fats, right?
Absolutely. Not all fats are bad. Healthy fats, like the ones found in avocados, nuts, seeds, and olive oil, are actually really good for us.
So it's more about choosing the right kinds of fats.
Exactly. They can help lower our bad cholesterol, reduce inflammation, and even improve our brain function.
So we're basically feeding our brains with these healthy fats.
Exactly. Our brains are largely made up of fat, and they need those healthy fats to function properly. So when we choose things like avocado toast or add nuts to our yogurt, we're giving our brains the nutrients they need to stay sharp.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
I'm definitely going to be adding more healthy fats to my breakfast routine.
Me too. It's all about those simple swaps.
That's great. It sounds like we've covered a lot of ground today. I'm already feeling more confident about making healthier choices at breakfast.
That's wonderful to hear. And remember, it's about progress, not perfection. Just take it one step at a time.
That's a great reminder. And it's about finding what works for you and enjoying the process of nourishing your body.
Absolutely. It's a journey, not a destination.
Welcome back, everyone.
Yeah.
I feel like we're really getting into some important stuff here, talking about how our breakfast choices can have such a big impact on our health as we get older.
It's definitely been eye-opening. We've been talking about those three main categories to watch out for: processed foods, sugary treats, and high-fat options. And I think it's important to point out that they often overlap, right?
Yeah, for sure. It's not always as simple as just avoiding one thing.
Exactly. Like, think about a breakfast pastry. It could be loaded with both saturated fat and sugar.
Oh, absolutely. And even that cereal that claims to be heart healthy could be full of added sugars and preservatives, right?
Right. Not to mention a lot of sodium. It's like a triple whammy.
It really is. And I think what's important to keep in mind is that all of this becomes even more crucial after 60 because, well, our bodies just don't work the same way they used to.
Absolutely. Our metabolism slows down, our digestion can get more sensitive, and our organs, like our kidneys and pancreas, just don't function quite as efficiently.
So something that we might have tolerated in our younger years could start causing problems as we get older.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to be mindful of what we're putting into our bodies. It's not enough to just rely on old habits or assumptions about what's healthy. We have to be proactive.
Yeah, we really have to take charge of our health. And what I really appreciate about this article is that it doesn't just point out the problems, it actually offers some really practical solutions and inspiring stories about people who have made changes and seen amazing results.
Those stories are so encouraging. They give us hope, you know? They show us that it's never too late to turn things around and that making positive changes can truly make a difference.
I totally agree. Like that story about Brenda who was having those dizzy spells and feeling so fatigued.
Yeah, she was having those blood pressure spikes because of her morning routine.
Yeah.
The instant oatmeal and pastry combo.
And remember George, who was surprised to learn that his breakfast of bacon, eggs, and buttered toast was contributing to his high cholesterol.
Oh, yeah. And Lisa, who found that switching to avocado toast and adding walnuts to her yogurt gave her more energy and even made her skin and hair look healthier.
It's amazing how those small changes can have such a big impact.
I know. It's like those little tweaks create a ripple effect that benefits our entire bodies.
Right. So what advice would you give to someone who's listening and thinking, okay, I'm ready to make some changes, but I don't know where to start?
That's a great question. I think the first step is awareness, right? Just take a look at what you're currently eating for breakfast and see if there are any areas where you could make some simple swaps.
Like maybe swapping out that sugary cereal for a bowl of oatmeal with fresh fruit, or choosing a hard-boiled egg instead of that breakfast pastry.
Exactly. Those small changes can really add up over time. And don't be afraid to have fun in the kitchen, experiment with different recipes, try new flavors, and find what you enjoy the most.
I think a lot of people get intimidated by the idea of cooking healthy meals, but it really doesn't have to be complicated.
I agree. There are so many quick and delicious recipes out there that are perfect for busy mornings. Cooking can actually be a really enjoyable and relaxing activity.
I find that too. It's so satisfying to create a nourishing meal for yourself. And when you cook at home, you have control over the ingredients, so you can be sure you're choosing the healthiest options.
And it's a great opportunity to get creative, right? Try different spices, herbs, new flavor combinations.
Oh yeah, I love experimenting in the kitchen. And speaking of making things easier, one thing that's really helped me stay on track with healthy eating is meal prepping.
Meal prepping is a game changer.
I like to spend a little time on the weekends, chopping veggies, maybe cooking some quinoa or hard-boiling some eggs. Then I have healthy options ready to grab during the week when I'm short on time.
That's such a smart strategy. Meal prepping can really take the pressure off, and it doesn't have to be a huge time commitment. Just prepping a few key ingredients can make a big difference.
Right. And can save money, too. When you have healthy meals and snacks ready to go, you're less likely to spend money on takeout or unhealthy snacks.
Absolutely. So we've talked about awareness, making simple swaps, getting creative in the kitchen, and meal prepping. What other advice would you give to someone who's looking to improve their breakfast choices?
I think it's crucial to remember that healthy eating shouldn't feel like deprivation. It's about finding those foods that you genuinely enjoy and that make you feel good, and then incorporating them into your diet in a way that's sustainable and enjoyable.
Yes, it's about creating a positive relationship with food.
Exactly. It's not about following strict rules or beating yourself up for having a treat every now and then. It's about finding a balance that works for you and allows you to enjoy all of the delicious and nourishing foods that life has to offer.
That's a great way to put it. It's about finding that sweet spot where you're nourishing your body and enjoying the experience of eating.
Absolutely. So we've been having this really interesting conversation about breakfast and how what we choose to eat can really impact our health, especially as we get older.
Yeah, it's been pretty eye-opening, for sure. We've learned about some of those common breakfast foods that, a lot of us might not realize could be affecting how we feel.
Absolutely. We've been talking about those three main things to watch out for: processed foods, sugary treats, and those high-fat options.
Right, and they can really sneak into our breakfast without us even realizing it.
Exactly. And of course, we talked about how these foods can become more of a problem as we get older.
Yeah, our bodies change so much over time, and the way we process food changes too.
But what's been really inspiring for me is hearing those stories about people who made even small changes to their breakfast routines.
Oh, me too. Those stories are so powerful.
Like Brenda, who was able to lower her blood pressure just by switching up her breakfast.
Yeah, she ditched that instant oatmeal and pastry combo and started making healthier choices.
And George, who was surprised to find out that his bacon and eggs were contributing to his high cholesterol.
And who could forget Lisa? She started adding healthy fats to her breakfast and saw a big difference in her energy levels, her digestion, and even her skin and hair.
Amazing, right? Those small changes really can make a big difference.
Absolutely. They have this ripple effect that impacts our whole bodies.
So as we wrap things up, is there anything else you want to leave our listeners with? Any final thoughts or key takeaways?
One thing that I find really fascinating is how our relationship with food goes beyond just our physical health.
Yeah, I've heard about that, the gut-brain connection, right?
Exactly. The trillions of bacteria in our gut play such a huge role in our overall health, and what we eat has a direct impact on those bacteria.
Wow. So when we make healthy choices at breakfast, we're not just feeding our bodies, but also our minds.
That's the idea. It's really incredible when you think about it.
It really is. It makes you want to learn even more about that connection between food, mood, and how our brains work.
I agree. There's so much more to discover, and I think that's a great point to end on.
I think so too. It's been a pleasure chatting with you today.
Likewise.
And to our listeners, keep experimenting, keep discovering, and most importantly, find what works best for you on your journey to a healthier and happier life. Every step counts, and every healthy choice you make is a victory.